Do half of Chelsea's £1 billion squad even exist? Romeo Lavia is the latest in Chelsea's injuries. He is out for the rest of the season. I mean, he's been out the whole season. He played 32 minutes. We've had 32 minutes of a £60 million player that looked incredibly talented. This is someone that genuinely last season, how people are looking at Kobbie Mainoo right now is how people are looking at Romeo Lavia. Someone that was comfortable on the ball, someone that could break the lines, someone that could shield the ball well and win it back. But he has been reduced to 32 minutes at Chelsea. And it begs the question, what is going on at Chelsea with all these injuries? Half this £1 billion squad, it's a Fugazi, it's a Wazi, it's a Woozy, it's fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's not fucking real. Honestly, when you break it down, 60 million on Lavia, 32 minutes we've seen this season. 80 million on Wesley Fofana, 0 minutes this season. Nkunku seems to spawn in to score a consolation goal for Chelsea, be that at Wolves away or Liverpool away. Other than that, we've barely seen him. Our captain in Reece James, now this isn't an investment, but this is someone that someone would have to invest heavily in if they were to attract him. In my opinion, the best fullback in football, but he's never fit. He's had reoccurring injury after injury after injury. It's so frustrating in that sense because we know what a top footballer he can be because we've seen a bit more of him than we have some of these new buys. We've barely had him once again. Leslie Ugachukwu. I mean, we saw little bits and pieces of him, but he's just disappeared off the map. Badia Shil. I mean, his evil twin has sort of spawned in this season at times to kind of gift away goals. Last season, he looked like Badia Shil. This has been Badia Shil this season. I don't know which Badia Shil's turned up, but he hasn't even been able to turn up that often because he's injured a lot of the season. Robert Sanchez, our goalie, got injured. And that was actually a positive in my eyes, to be honest, because Petrovic, I feel a lot more calm with. I feel more at ease with. I'm not saying Sanchez isn't an upgrade on Kepa, because they both are. They both have hands. However, Sanchez, I feel more uneasy with him. He might be a bit better on the ball in terms of his passing, but Petrovic is a safe pair of hands in general. That's excluding Chilwell's constant injuries, Cucurella being out for 4 odd months. So what's to blame here? Because you can look at a number of factors, and it might be the case that are Chelsea signing too many injury-prone players? Well, in Wesley Fofana's case, that's probably a good case in point in terms of someone that had recurring knee injuries. That should have been something that was a bit more looked into, and we've barely been able to see Wesley Fofana. Now, I'm a big fan of his. I thought last season, particularly against Dortmund, I thought he was a player we could really look to for the future, someone that was very exciting. Despite that United away performance, I thought in general he was very good, but we haven't been able to see him. And Nkunku you could look at as something that's a recurring issue in terms of injuries. But that's not the case with Lavia. Last season, in fact, at Southampton, he had the most minutes of any under-21s player for a Premier League side. And yet here, he comes and he crumbles into dust. He doesn't exist. And I feel for the bloke, I really do, in terms of this being a real frustration. Is it something that you could push onto Poch? Is it Poch's training methods? Is it the fact that we've got all these injuries? But what I would say about that is, we've had these injuries for a number of years now. Even after that Champions League win, that Juve game basically, remember Chilwell was out, Kante was out, Lukaku was already out. But they all started to pile on. Reece James was getting injured, Kovacic was getting injured, Werner was getting injured. It started to build and build and build, and last season was very much the same. This was a season that was completely ravaged by injury. So that's been the case now for 3 recurring years. It doesn't seem like it's just on Poch in that sense. I know people want to push it on him. Like I said, guys, I don't think he's that guy going forward to Chelsea to bring us back to where we need to be, but I don't know if it's fair to put the blame on him with this case when it's been something that's been happening for a long time now. Is it a case of looking at Chelsea's medical staff? But I feel like they've replaced quite a number of those during their tenure, these new owners. So it's all quite confusing, and there's probably just a number of factors at play. Either way, it's incredibly frustrating for us as fans, because when you actually think about it and you look at someone like Lavia and Nkunku, Reece James, our captain, our best player, to be honest, weren't fit. I see Fofana, probably our best centre-back in my opinion. I really wanted to see Fofana and Cole develop as a 2. But when you think about Chelsea with these players, these are first-teamers. Lavia is someone that, okay, most of the time Caicedo and Enzo could start, but you could be looking at trying to develop them as a 3. And we haven't had the luxury of being able to do that. Now, as I said, I'm someone that's very critical of Pochettino, but there's a degree of sympathy here when I look at it and I look at those players and I think, would we be better off? Would Chelsea be a better side? Now, you don't have to be a Chelsea fan to work out. Chelsea would be a better side with those players, naturally. I'm not saying Gusto hasn't been an incredible bit of business, because he has meant that losing Reece James is far less of a downgrade. Look, I absolutely love Azpilicueta to bits. I love Dave. He's a top geezer. However, he was ageing, and playing him right back in a 4, it felt very dangerous at times for our sake. And with Gusto, you've got a real talented player there that's only getting better and better. But imagine being able to have the option of them coexisting. Imagine the option of, when we've had our Chilwell and Cucurella out, you could have had Gusto at left back, where he has worked a bit. And I'm not the biggest fan of playing players out of position, but that could have worked with Reece James on the right. You'd have the option of having Reece James on the right side of a 3 with Malo Gusto as the right wing back, something that Thomas Tuchel used with Reece there. And of course, my dream option of perhaps moving Reece a bit into midfield. That's something that I really could get behind. I just think the bloke is just talented in every asset of his game other than staying fit. It's such a tragedy that that's something that he struggles with, because he is just such a talented player. But ultimately, it's hard to pinpoint what exactly is the issue here. Is it the medical staff? Perhaps, but they've replaced some of those. Is it Pochettino's training methods? Perhaps, but this has been a pre-existing issue. Is it the fact that Chelsea have been signing injury-prone players? Perhaps, but then you've got cases like Lavia where this isn't someone that struggled with injuries prior. So there's a number of flaws in every argument, and realistically, it's probably an amalgamation of all of those factors. I've seen some people hypothesize online, actually, that Lavia could be a case of growing issues, which, I mean, it could make sense. I'm not a doctor, to be honest. I'm a doctor of thugonomics, but I'm not a doctor. And ultimately, this is all to our detriment, and it's too consistent now for it to be a fluke. It isn't just bad luck, but like I said, there has to be a mixture of all these factors coming into play here. And those factors all need to fuck off, because I need to see a Chelsea with these players available next season. I need to see a Chelsea that develops with all their players there. Not a Chelsea where we sign a player and we can't see not just the best of them in a few years, but we can't even see them for a year or two. It's getting incredibly frustrating and tiresome just seeing that weekly rehab update. Like, just fuck off. So it is hard to pinpoint what the crux of the issue exactly is here, but it's something we do need to get to the bottom of and do need to progress past, because we're not going to develop without the players there to develop them. We're seeing certain ones in Parma, perhaps Mudryk at times, like I said, Gusto, but we need more. We need more of our squad actually here. And it goes to show a lot of this £1 billion squad that it's being labelled. Is it misspent, perhaps? Is there a case that we haven't exactly been able to use all of them anyway? I mean, some of them have already been sold in Koulibaly, etc. But in players that we haven't been able to see, not just the best of, but even on the pitch, we don't really have that squad. It's a great term to throw around loosely, but like I said, you got 80 million in Fofana, you don't see him. 60 million in Lavia, you don't see him. 60 million in Kunku, you don't see him. Chelsea's best player, you don't see him. Then on top of that, it's kids who are out on loan at 15, 20, you know, Kendry Pais and Angelo and Santos. Denzel Washington's here. There's a number of our fees allocated that you look at and you think, could have been better spent? Yeah, sure. Is it really fair to completely label this squad the 1 billion squad? Probably not. And like I said, more importantly, I'm happy to criticise Pochettino when I think it's necessary, but I do think in this case, I do have a degree of sympathy. I think it's undeniable that Chelsea will be better with some of these players available, and we haven't had them. Whether we ever get to the point where we have them, I don't know. Maybe this will just keep going on. I mean, it's gone on for the last 3 years. Why wouldn't it go on for 4 or 5? But there has to be a point where more of these players are available and we can develop. Whether it will be under Pochettino, I don't know. But I want these players available. Anyway, guys, hope you did enjoy that video. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, up the Chelsea.